She said it calmly, as if she were announcing a change of phone carrier. I just need some time to find myself again. Let's not contact each other, okay? Her voice was soft, steady, neither trembling nor uncertain, just distant enough for me to understand. This wasn't a suggestion. It was a decision. I looked at her and simply asked, no contact. For how long? She shrugged lightly. I don't know. When I'm okay, I'll let you know. That answer clarified more than 1,000 explanations ever could. People only say, when I'm okay. I'll reach out when they already know they never will. No tears, no anger, no drama. Just a quiet afternoon, sunlight streaming through the blinds. And her saying I need to find myself, as if she were discussing weekend plans. I nodded. All right. The words came out easier than I expected. I didn't stop her, didn't ask why, because when someone has already planned their departure, every reason is just decoration. I left her apartment near dusk. The air outside was cool, the streetlights casting thin streaks of yellow along the pavement. I walked slowly, not thinking much. What I felt wasn't sadness-y, was emptiness. The kind of emptiness that feels organized when your mind no longer knows how to feel. I understood I had just lost someone, yet I also knew there was nothing I could do. I've always believed, if someone truly loves you, they won't need a break, and if they do, it means they're already gone, just not ready to say it out loud. That night, I lay still, staring at the ceiling. No texts, no calls, no social media checking. I respected her no contact, not because she asked for it, but because I wanted to see how long I could endure it. People say silence is the strongest answer. I wanted to see whether hers would ever come more, if it would just stretch into an endless void the next day. I woke early, went to work, met colleagues, had lunch, came home. Everything unfolded so normally it felt fake, but her words still echoed in my head. I need time to find myself. It sounds wise, even profound, but really, it's just a philosophical way to avoid confrontation. People don't find themselves by disappearing. They're just preparing for something else, and usually that something else has the shape of another person. I wasn't angry. I just observed. I treated my own reactions like an experiment. Each day that passed, no calls, no updates, I noted the shifts inside me. Calm, a bit of sadness, then calm again. Something in me was changing coldly, as if I were learning to disconnect emotion with reason. Not because I was strong, but because I knew, sooner or later, the truth would surface on its own, no searching needed. When someone says don't contact me, it's not because they fear being disturbed, it's because they fear facing the truth, and I understood that, because sometimes silence isn't a pause. It's a way to pave a smooth road toward an ending. I don't know when she texts again. I'm not even sure I'd want her to. But I know this, from the moment she said those words, there was no longer an us, just one person trying to stay composed, and another quietly leaving, trying not to feel guilty. The first 3 days passed more slowly than I expected. Everything still functioned as usual, work, group chats, small talk, but I no longer felt like I was truly part of any of it. It was as if I were watching life through a fogged window, where every sound was muted and every emotion felt distant. I didn't delete her number, nor did I block it. But every time my phone lit up, even if it was just a spam notification, my heart jumped. A reflex, instinctive. like my body hadn't yet realized that the person I was waiting for wouldn't be messaging again. At night, I'd unlock my phone and scroll through my contacts. My finger would stop at her name. I never tapped it, just stared. The same profile photo, those eyes that smile, still there, calm to the point of irritation. I wondered if she ever thought about me, or if she had already tucked every emotion neatly away, the same way she left quietly. Without trace. By the 4th day, I realized I'd started counting the days. A strange, pointless habit, but hard to stop. Like someone waiting for a train they know has been cancelled. Standing on the platform simply because they haven't learned how to walk away yet. I didn't tell anyone about this. Not because I wanted to hide it, but because I knew what people would say. You'll be fine. Or if she needs time, let her have it. Reasonable advice, but useless. Because emptiness doesn't come from being left behind. It comes from not knowing how to move forward when someone disappears without giving a clear reason. A week later, I realized how terrifyingly quiet my apartment had become. No more laughter through video calls. No more messages saying I'm home safe. Just the ticking of the wall clock steady. Slow, cold. I tried everything to stay busy, going to the gym, working late, watching movies, listening to podcasts. But there were still gaps in the day I couldn't fill. In those moments, I'd sit still and wonder if she's truly finding herself. Then what am I supposed to do with the part of us she left behind? On the 9th night, I dreamed of her. Nothing dramatic. She was just sitting at our old cafe, looking out the window, holding her usual glass of orange juice. I walked in, tried to call her name, but no sound came out. She turned, smiled softly, then faded, like breath vanishing into the air. I woke up with cold sweat on my forehead and realized, even in dreams, she wouldn't let me say a word. That's when I understood, no contact isn't just physical distance. It's a deliberate kind of departure, where one person learns silence, and the other must learn how to stop hoping. But what I didn't expect was that in that silence, I started hearing something I'd ignored for so long. My own voice, faint, lonely, but real, and I knew the hardest part hadn't even begun. On the 12th day, I received the first sign from her. Not a message, but a post. A picture of a sunset with a short caption. Sometimes silence is how you hear your heart the clearest. I stared at the screen for a long time. Didn't like it. Didn't comment. Just sat there, letting the pale golden light from that photo reflect on my face. A quiet kind of mockery. Hearing your heart the clearest, huh? And what about mine? What exactly am I hearing? The sound of my heartbeat slowing down, or the fading footsteps of someone walking away? I turned off my phone. Then, later that night, I turned it on again, and off, and on, a meaningless loop. The hardest part isn't the silence itself. It's being teased with a small sign, only for it to disappear again, like a door slightly ajar, just enough for you to believe there's a way back when in truth, it's only open for the wind to pass through. On the 13th day, I noticed she'd viewed one of my stories, a simple photo of a morning coffee, no caption. I knew those views meant nothing, but when someone who used to be your whole world suddenly sees you again, your brain instantly translates that into hope. I hated that instinct, but I couldn't turn it off. On the 17th day, I got a text from a mutual friend. Hey, I saw Lynn at the mall yesterday. Looks like she changed her hairstyle. She looks really different. I typed back, yeah, that's nice. Just 3 words, but my heart pounded so loud I could hear it. Part of me wanted to ask more, who she was with, whether she laughed, whether she seemed happy. But another part of me just smirked. I had no right to know anymore. That night, I opened our old photos, a habit I thought I'd broken. We were laughing in those pictures, carefree, almost unrecognizable now. She was resting her head on my shoulder, and I remember thinking I'd keep her forever. How foolish. Then I looked closer and noticed things I hadn't before. Her eyes weren't looking directly at me. Her smile was slightly forced. Her hand barely held mine. Small details, but painfully clear now, as if she'd started leaving long before she ever said it aloud. On the 20th day, I stopped checking her social media. Not because I'd forgotten, but because I was tired. Tired of decoding every vague signal, every caption, every picture, as if somewhere inside them was a clue explaining why everything fell apart. I began to write. Not for anyone to read, not to send to her, just to talk to myself. I wrote down the questions I'd never dared to ask her. Why didn't you just say you wanted to leave? Did you ever miss me, even a little? Or was I just a stop along your journey, something you had to outgrow to become who you are now? No one answered, of course. But somewhere between those messy lines of ink, I realized the only signal I ever needed didn't come from her. It came from me, from the moment I finally stopped waiting, and maybe that was when the real letting go began. On the 25th day, it started to rain, a light, persistent rain, not loud, but enough to make the city look hazier than usual. I walked home from work, my coat half soaked, stepped into my familiar, slightly damp apartment, and realized the rain made everything inside feel heavier, perhaps because it reminded me of the last time we walked together in the rain. She was laughing, and I was holding my jacket over her, thinking that would be enough to keep her with me. I hadn't understood then. Some people don't leave because of the cold, but because they no longer want to be sheltered at all. That evening, I received a strange message. A new number with a short text. Are you okay? I read it, my heart skipping a beat. A simple question, yet it sent my mind spinning. The phrasing, the choice of words, even the spacing, all unmistakably her style. But I wasn't sure. I read it over and over nearly 10 times, and in the end, I didn't reply. Not because I wanted to appear strong, but because I was afraid that if I replied, I'd return to square one. Afraid that after sending a message, I'd have to hear something like I just wanted to check in. And I knew I wasn't calm enough to endure that again. The next day, no further messages came. That number was silent, as if it had never existed. I tried to reason, could it have been someone else? But eventually, I let it go. Whether it was her or not, what mattered was that I no longer needed an answer. I began walking every evening after work, along the street where we once ate ice cream, argued, held hands. Now, looking back, everything seemed smaller, more ordinary, even trivial. Perhaps, when people are in love, the world naturally feels bigger. When love fades, the space shrinks, leaving only the leftover details. One evening, passing our old cafe, I saw her. She was sitting with someone, a man, tall, neatly dressed. They talked, smiled quietly, nothing overly intimate, but enough for me to understand she had moved on. I paused for a few seconds, not out of jealousy, but like watching a film I once starred in. Now from the audience's seat, I walked away without looking back. No need. That scene was enough. That night, I returned home, made a cup of tea, turned on the soft yellow lamp, and wrote a few more lines in my notebook. She's okay, and I'm learning not to need to be okay anymore. I realized that all this time, I'd been trying to find a sense of balance, thinking that being okay was the destination. But in truth, being okay doesn't mean being free from pain. Being okay is when you accept that the pain has become part of you and you keep living calmly alongside it. Outside, the rain kept falling, steady, unhurried, endless. I looked out the window and smiled faintly. Perhaps, finally, I began to understand. Not everyone who enters your life is meant to stay. Some come only to teach you how to stand when they leave. And the wind still blew against me, but I had stopped struggling against it. On the 30th day, I realized I no longer checked her social media. Not because I didn't care, but because I understood that waiting, tracking, and overanalyzing every little signal only made me lose sight of my own life. I decided, starting today, to live for myself first. That morning, I went to the park near my home, where we used to sit and read together. She wasn't there, and I didn't need her to be. I just needed the space and fresh air. I sat on a bench, took a deep breath, and for the first time in weeks, felt at peace. Peace, not because I had forgotten her, but because I had accepted the truth. Not everyone stays, and not every relationship lasts forever. I began keeping a daily journal, not to send to anyone, just to reflect on myself. I wrote down every feeling, every thought, and gradually realized that this process itself was helping me grow. I learned to recognize my own limits, to be patient with my emotions, and most importantly, to not place my happiness in someone else's hands. A week later, I met an old friend. We went for coffee, talked about life, about everything that had happened. This time, I felt free to share, without hiding, without fear of judgment. I realized that past relationships, painful or sweet, had all taught me the same lesson: to value and respect myself first. On the 40th day, I decided to try something new. I signed up for a photography class I had always wanted to take. I wanted to rediscover joy for myself, not to erase memories of her, but to live in the present. Every photo I took, every frame I considered, brought a strange sense of freedom. I smiled to myself, realizing I could still be happy, even without us. One evening, walking down a familiar street, I came across a small bookstore. I stepped inside, picked up a novel I had long wanted to read, and sat down. Opening the book, I realized, life goes on, and so do I. Not everything is easy, but every small step brings me closer to myself. I wrote in my journal, she's gone, but that doesn't mean emptiness. I've learned to start over, with my own hands and heart. And for the first time in weeks, I felt truly alive, not just existing. I knew the journey ahead was still long, but at least I was ready to move forward. On the 50th day, I began to realize something. Life doesn't always follow the script we imagine. I walked through familiar streets, past the cafes we once visited together, but now I no longer felt emptiness. Instead, there was a sense of relief, as if the city itself was breathing with me. As if the corners that once evoked sad memories were now quietly smiling in their own way. I focused on the small things, the aroma of morning coffee, the rustle of leaves underfoot, sunlight filtering through tree branches. Each detail became precious because for the first time I understood that happiness doesn't have to be grand. It appears in ordinary moments, in simple things we often overlook. I walked past bookstores, listening to music drifting from open windows. feeling the warmth of steaming cups of coffee, and realized the world is still full of color. Despite the private sorrows I've endured in photography class, I began to observe the world differently, no longer just looking for beautiful shots, but searching for the story in each frame. I captured glances, fleeting smiles, quiet streets. Through the lens, the world seemed bigger, and I felt larger than the sadness that once swallowed me. I experimented with angles and light, even capturing small details I'd never noticed before. Falling leaves, rays of sunlight through door cracks, strangers' hands holding books. Each photo told its own story, and in each frame I found freedom. One afternoon, while editing photos in a cafe, my phone vibrated. A message from her, not a check-in, not an apology, just a line, wishing you all the best. I looked at the message and smiled naturally. No nervousness, no pain, just a simple realization. Everything is fine. She was okay, and so was I. I sent a single reply, thank you. For the first time in over a month, I responded to her message without feeling anxious or expecting anything more. No knots in my chest, only calm. I realized that letting go is not erasing memories, but learning to live with them without being controlled by them. I learned to love myself, and that every relationship, no matter how it ends, offers valuable lessons. On the 60th day, I walked home and stopped at a newly opened cafe. I went in, chose a quiet corner, sipped my tea, and looked out at the street. She was a chapter in the past, but I had my own rhythm now. No one could write the music for me anymore. Only I could compose my own melodies. I watched passers-by laugh, hurry, and live ordinary yet beautiful moments, and I realized I was stepping into a new rhythm, where I controlled the pace, the beat, and the colors of my life. I lingered, writing in my journal, life isn't perfect, but I can create my own rhythm. She has moved on, and so have I, slowly, surely, calmly. Now I knew I had truly stood firm. No more fear, no more regrets. Only me, life, and the rhythm I created. In that moment, I felt stronger than ever. I no longer needed anyone to remind me I existed, because I had found myself in every step, every breath, and every photograph I took. The journey is still long, but for the first time, I walk forward without looking back. No more blaming, no more waiting, only me and the world, together with my own rhythm. On the 70th day, I stood on the balcony of my apartment, watching the city as the sun slowly set. The lights gradually came on, twinkling across the streets like fallen stars, creating a shimmering carpet I had never noticed before. I took a deep breath, feeling each heartbeat, each inhalation, and for the first time in weeks, there was no emptiness, no sense of loss. Everything seemed still, yet complete in its own way. I thought of her, of the days we spent together, of the moments of laughter, tears, and quarrels, our walks in the rain, long afternoons in cafes, and even the quiet moments shared in silence. Now I remembered these not to cling to pain, but to realize that they were all part of the journey, the building blocks of who I am today. Those memories were no longer a burden, but colors on the canvas I continue to paint. A canvas where I hold the brush. That evening, I opened my journal and read the lines I had written since the first day she said, "I need some time." I realized how much I had changed. Each day, each step, each thought, each photograph, they had all taught me patience with my emotions. the art of letting go without resentment, and most importantly, how to love myself. I learned to find joy in the simplest things: the sunlight through a window, the rustle of leaves underfoot, quiet streets I had never truly noticed. Serenity does not come from forgetting, but from acceptance. Accepting that some people come into your life only to teach you a lesson, and when they leave, you must continue moving forward. I had learned not to rely on anyone else to affirm my worth, not to depend on anyone to feel happiness or safety. I had learned to create my own joy, cultivate my own happiness, and walk my own path. A gentle breeze blew across the balcony, carrying the scent of rain-soaked earth. The cool air brushed against me, yet it made me feel alive. I smiled. No regrets, no sorrow, no anger. Only me, the world, and a profound serenity I had never known before. Everything around seemed to pause, yet my mind opened, a freedom I had never felt. I knew there would be more days ahead. Moments when the past would resurface, times when she would appear in my mind. But now I was not afraid. I was strong enough to face it all, confident enough to live for myself, and wise enough to understand that letting go is not the end, but sometimes the only way to truly move forward. I closed my eyes for a moment, listening to the wind, the lingering raindrops on rooftops, and the distant hum of the city. In that moment, I realized that serenity is not absolute silence or the absence of emotion, but when you can look back on the past without being dragged down, when you know that no matter what surprises life brings, you can stand firm. She had left. I had moved on. And this time, I walked not to find her, but to find myself, serene, free, complete, and ready for the new rhythms only I could create. I smiled to myself, a genuine smile, not to hide pain, but to welcome myself, life, and everything the future might bring. I knew that every step, no matter how small, was a promise to myself. I would live fully, with all that belongs to me, and in that moment, amid the wind, the lights, and the ordinary rhythm of life, I felt truly free. I was serene,